Just a long lost look in your eyes brings out a love that I can't disguise. So take me down to the places I've never seen. Or don't you try to kill me with kind. It's just your love that's driving me wild. Oh, from the dawn we rise, with the heart we cry, into the light we go, into the light we go. From the darkest night, from the fire inside, into the light we go, into the light we go, into the light we go.
We're back here, and if you're late to the party, you might be surprised to see that KONGDOO MONSTER actually won a game against SKT, which effectively makes it a best of one to decide whether SKT makes it into the playoffs or do Rock's Tigers make it in.
And the weird thing is, you look at KONGDOO's comp, you think about it and you're like, if this was solo queue, KONGDOO MONSTER had the great comp, the counter picks, you get going, start to tilt some of those members, you're going to win. And yet, it felt very, very active in this game. There was an organized defensive game plan. SKT could have rolled out, played defensively, gotten over the LeBlanc and Fiora laning picks, and just gone for team fights. Instead, they opted into too much here. There was some uncharacteristic mistakes from some of their players. And KONGDOO MONSTER, off the back of 3 Infernals and a farmed Fiora, took down the game pre-30 minutes for only their 3rd game victory in 14 best-of-3s.
It's hard to say, but that's the reality of what we just watched. Certainly some mistakes from the guy in the bottom left. He has been the carry for SKT, but if you watch this game, you might question it. You know, the best mid laner in the world, the best player, but he's got to step up for game 3 and be ready. Roach also having a fantastic game on the Fiora, certainly at this point the Baron, and 3 Infernals helping him out in that play. But KONGDOO MONSTER actually win a game here. We thought it was a foregone conclusion. SKT, they're in. It's KONGDOO MONSTER, right? But I don't know. I don't know what to say after that game.
We can say it's going to a best of one, Valdes. Somehow this weird season for SKT, where they've dropped more games than they ever have before, is down to a best of one against KONGDOO MONSTER. And we can legit show a bit of poise, a bit of questioning about whether SKT can get over the line. They are massive favorites for this series after going over KSV and MVP in dominating fashion. This game where they gave away a jungle advantage and 2 solo lane advantages they didn't have an answer for, so they have to adjust their draft. The MVP here will be the Fiora. We saw in the picture-in-picture the small pocket of KONGDOO fans losing their mind.
Yeah.
They see a KONGDOO MVP for the first time in a long time.
His first MVP, and he gets it off the back of a 2-1-3 Fiora. But he certainly did his job. 2 solo kills, a double kill, a 1-on-2 by himself to secure the victory. Had that not happened, maybe KONGDOO MONSTER backs off and they're ahead, but somehow SKT clawed their way back. But because of his fantastic play at the end, it ends the game, and it brings us to game number 3. As you mentioned, they're the big favorites, SKT, but it seems to be a matter of pressure and communication. There's so much pressure on SKT to win this series. They are the favorites by far. If you had the fan vote, it might be something like 90-10 or 95-5, but you know, on any given day, a best of 3 against any LCK team, and anyone can win.
And now it's a best of one. Now it's the format that draws the most criticism because there is no backup game. It's a best of one for their whole season. Will it be SKT missing playoffs, KSV and Rocks going through, or SKT limping over the line to force a best of 3 against KSV? Well, their time in the playoffs in the wild card match. Amazing that we have this tension, and it sounds like Pick and Ban is ready.
Yep, certainly is. So guys, we're gonna jump into Pick and Ban for the last time in this series.
Now, you will notice there are no changes for SKT. They do not sub in anyone. They keep with the same roster. To me, what SKT need to do is just respect the fact that KONGDOO Monster can play win lane, win game. Be a bit more respectful. I think the Taliyah priority will go down. I imagine Faker would love the Azir, something that can fend for himself in any matchup. Whereas KONGDOO Monster, if they can find another way to get a winning mid lane matchup and attack Faker, that seemed to unsettle SKT as a whole, not just the great man in the mid lane himself. The Monster will not walk into the Xayah either. And we see an Olaf ban. So I love to see that respect bans are being earned this series. The Xayah earned after game 1. The Olaf and the pressure earned after game 2. Now KONGDOO Monster considering the Rise, that would be a true flex pick and a takeaway from Faker's famous champion.
Yeah. Would also mean that Faker couldn't respond with a LeBlanc of his own against a Taliyah. And you're pointing at it, it's the Zac for blank. They take it away as a first pick over the side of KONGDOO.
And now they say, all right, we've seen your Jarvan, that worked. What have you got into Zac? And they will take the Zac for Raze. One of the few picks that the team actually has a decent win ratio on. So that 3-0 is gone 3-4, because sadly, that's just how the season has gone. But Zac has been very respectable. And Zac can potentially have a great matchup into the Varus. Let's see if Faker will lock in the Thresh for effort. Who has not jumped on the Thresh this season. Was an engaged support before he became kind of a disengaged support when we saw him in the Casper Cup and also this season. He is known for the engaged choices. The Thresh is what you want to answer the Zac in one pick.
Certainly is. As we mentioned before, there's a small pocket of KONGDOO fans that are still here in the studio, and they bring out the banner for Game 3 because they know there's a chance it's actually going to happen. The Jhin, banned twice in a row, comes out this time. Soul will say, thank you very much. It's my time to shine.
Legacy pick for Soul. Sort of pick that can be answered by a big tank line. They already have a Sejuani, so we'll see how much respect is shown by the side of SKT to the potential of the Jhin, which got pretty heavy buffs over time. Now, if you want Thresh, you probably need it now. But SKT seem to be reaching instead. They want to play a global game, and they will put Tal on his most successful champion so far in spring season in the GP. 5-1 on the season, can allow them to play the side lanes very well. His ultimate is also one you can throw onto the curtain call and say, Jhin, how many of these Cannon Barrages can you take before you fall low enough in the fight?
Yeah, also offers them a chance to double ban out the top lane to give Tal an even easier laning phase. You think about picks like Camille, even the Fiora. Well, what are they going to go in terms of banning here? They've already taken away the Vlad. It looks like Camille will be the second choice.
How spicy is Roach willing to get? I believe I saw him play some Riven into Gangplank a few months ago. The weird thing about Roach is I say he's a tank-only player. I remember asking the team about Roach because he's struggled for a long time. Every time he has been on KONGDOO Monster, through all the seasons, he has struggled. And I'm told he's a carry player. He just doesn't have the confidence to do it. This would be a time to hold your hand up to be counted after a great Fiora game. We do see the respect ban onto the Thresh, so the reliable disengage on the Zac is taken away. SKT looking for support, but also the mid lane. They will be giving Faker counterpick, so we'll see what Edge wants to take blind. Maybe you just run the LeBlanc and say, what you got?
Would certainly be a statement towards the side of SKT, especially if they took a very aggressive counter matchup into the top side as well. KONGDOO Monster, will they make the statement here with their last two picks? What are they going to do? Another Fiora for Roach seems like the answer.
Gonna play around a winning top lane. The Gangplank does pretty well into Fiora, but we know that Fiora 2 items and with some Infernals can go, and they're gonna blind the LeBlanc. I think they're gonna do it. He knows that if he goes Taliyah, Faker will play LeBlanc and bring it back after a few years. So for now, it's just gonna be the mind game. He shows the LeBlanc and says, all right, we'll lock in the Rise. So they won't lock the LeBlanc. They are gonna take the Rise. It's not been a winning, but they are 0-8 on Rise, but not necessarily because of Edge's own misplays. SKT looking down the tier list. Will they go the Cassiopeia? Another tier champion buff on the Archangels changes. Hasn't been a big pick for Faker in this season. The Anivia can definitely be considered, but remember, Anivia is strongest against multiple tanks. However, it's a good laning matchup into the Rise. You outrange him, you're able to use the wall for a lot of disengage and engage. It's not necessarily a team comp answer to what KONGDOO Monster want to do, but it can always evolve to be if they force KONGDOO Monster into a 5v5 team fight.
I do like, though, you mentioned winning the lanes, and we saw it out of KONGDOO Monster in Game 2. They won the lanes, they won the game, they had the Olaf jungle to help out as well. This time SKT says, you're not going to win the lane, we are the better team. We don't necessarily need the direct answer to your composition, but we are better players, and we're going to show you with our draft.
They're not surrounding the top side like they did in Game 1. They weren't respectful around KONGDOO's winning lanes. They lost. In this game, the Fiora, slight advantage over the Gangplank, who will farm. We know how that goes. The Zac and Sejuani is basically a wash. Sejuani has most of the aggressive options when it comes to the earlier laning matchup, and it is a winning lane matchup for Anivia over Ryze after 6, when you can actually show some threat and put down the Glacial Storm. But this is spicy, Valdez. It's still a best of 1, and crazier things have happened. We just saw KONGDOO Monster win pre-30 minutes against SKT. Can they find their 3rd match win of the season and take probably the most popular team in the world and dump them out of playoffs? Your first thought always is no. Your brain says no. But it's weird to say that KONGDOO Monster are still in with a shot. We're going down to the wire.
At least Faker still smirking after that last game. They went back to the drawing board. They went into the room. Everybody calmed down, and they're ready. They've been in pressure situations before. Feels weird to say that a best of 1 against KONGDOO Monster is a pressure situation, but they need to win 100% to make it into the playoffs, and certainly that's pressure enough. So let's see how it's going to go down. A game number 3 between SKT and KONGDOO Monster. Here we go, game number 3, SKT, KDM. Something I didn't think I'd be saying, but KONGDOO Monster able to pull it out and make things very, very interesting. As we mentioned before, KONGDOO, they're not really fighting for anything. They're already in relegations, they're already in 10th place. But it's good practice, I suppose. They're going to try their hardest, of course.
And they do have that relegation playoff to play just after the LCK finals, so probably somewhere in the second half of April. And when you're KONGDOO Monster, a team that started this series on a 13-match loss streak, you probably don't get a lot of scrims with SKT or Kingzone or the top teams. You probably have to scrim with the bottom half and also the challenger teams. A lot of teams will go into break, the teams that aren't in playoffs in a couple of weeks. So it's really all about getting as much good practice as possible. It's great practice. If they can beat SKT, they will have a lot of confidence going into the relegation matches against Griffin and likely Damwon Gaming as well. So today, it's all about a best of 1 that could honestly really buff up their hopes for promotions, whereas for SKT and most of the fans watching, it's about SKT's destiny. They're SKT, surely they always make playoffs. Right now, it has to be decided in a best of 1.
Seeger wants to get the steal, and Blank says no. Thank you, I'll smite it. We also had a little thing pop up about Ryze. Did receive some nerfs to his E, less spread damage, but more damage in terms of numbers early on. And also his Realm Warp, 60 seconds across the board, is going to be longer on the cooldown, up to 180. So it says, will Ryze still be used? And it looks like the answer here is yes. Still very safe pick, sustained damage from the mid lane. Edge hasn't had a lot of success on this pick, though. We mentioned it before. He's currently 0 and 8 on the pick. Is that his rise, or is that his team just failing? We'll have to wait and see as this game goes on.
I mean, if you think of notable Ryze blunders, you think of, say, Lava, for example, when he realm warped his team into Doom in a series for Rockstar. You don't think of Edge. I think he's been fine on the Ryze, but he has been counterpicked by the Anivia, looking for a lot of aggression onto Effort, but won't be able to get the Devour, does KONGDOO Monster. And we finally see the Jhin that's been banned against Soul quite a lot this week. A lot of respect being shown, playing a lot in solo queue, and has played 26 pro games on the Jhin. It's always been in his wheelhouse. Power being respected after the buffs on patch 8.5. And you've got to say that SKT could have gone full tanks. They haven't really. It's not the squishiest team. It's not the tankiest either. Certainly, we see Soul get to the sort of AD values I saw from Sheriff last night in the EU LCS playoffs, where he was at 800 AD. Who knows?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you mentioned we haven't seen Jhin in quite a while. It's coming in because it's getting buffed, especially They need 0.5, lots of extra damage added to his kit. He can root everybody with his W now on any of his damage, of course, and he gets played in solo queue. He gets to play it in scrims, and people know that he's really good on the pick. I'm excited to see what he can do here. Definitely will have to deal with the Sejuani and an Alistair in his face, as well as the Cannon Barrage from the GP, as you mentioned earlier.
Nice thing about Jhin against the Varus is it's another pick into Varus. Varus is a blocker pick for a lot of AD carries. No one wants to run Stana into Varus anymore because of the Varus' laning priority. Jhin is very, very safe. You can go Doran Shield, you don't have to go Doran Ring and go for a gimmicky Runes page in order to get through the laning phase. The buffs have made him viable again, so it's nice to see options in the AD carry role. We see Jinx and Jhin run around the Rift in the last week after being on very much the standard Varus versus Tristana for the whole of the season, so it is fun to see options for people like Soul.
We're going to have to see Blank on the Sejuani once again. He looked okay on it in game number 2. I wouldn't say it was necessarily his fault that they lost the game, but still the question remains, can he carry a bit on the Sejuani pick, or rather is it, carry on something that is not the Zac that Raze did pick away from him this game?
Or even a simpler ask, have some early game plays on a champion that isn't the Zac, because the Jarvan, it was all after Raze got the first 2 kills in the game. The Sejuani in the previous game, nothing doing, so we're looking for a level 6 gank from Blank at this point to show us his straps and show us that it wasn't just the Zac. He was able to get him over the line in 4 games in a row. I'm also interested to see the Fiora matchup, because to me, Gangplank does very, very well against Fiora in multiple different ways. Raze in the mid lane on a ward.
Faker trying to bait it here. Let's see if he can do it. The stun is going to miss. No wall comes out. There it is, finally. Intensity with his ultimate. Raze taking a lot of damage, but has to flash over the wall.
That was a nice bait from Faker. He knew he was about to hit level 6 from a minion dying, able to go in, get the flash away from Raze. Now they can potentially invade the enemy jungle and know there's one tool that's down on the Zac, who uses his only other gap close to farm the minions. Just to talk about top lane for a little bit. If you think about the Gangplank's build, it's already basically pre-decided when you know you're in the Fiora matchup. Trinity Force into the Sterix Gauge. Because with Sterix Gauge, through the ultimate, you actually have a very hard time killing the Gangplank because the shield pops up. You're usually about exact damage, the percentage true damage coming through, and not able to take advantage of that when the Sterix shield messes up calculations. So usually very safe in the side lane, whereas Fiora's solo kill pressure, we saw that in the previous game. 1v2 was even possible for Roach in that game.
Yeah, once you get to a certain point, it's part of the reason why Fiora does get picked. And even though it hasn't had too much success, Roach finds the answer, the formula.
Risky. Raze is invading. Remember, his flash is down.
That he is. SKT has been doing a good job of warding. Let's see if the smite can come in. Blank is going to get it after all of that. Raze also getting pretty low.
He gets 6 from the blue buff. Smite away as well. Blank was level 5 at the start of all that. We get the pull out to let us know that for now at least, there's going to be no threat. Secret moving into position for the Devour.
Whoa, okay. Blank trying to, get him underneath the dragon damage. Now Soul in a little bit of trouble.
Devour's on cooldown.
There it is, the Ignite ticking down. They need one more hit to do it, but here's Raze. Look at him turn it around. He dodges the Cannon Barrage too. Now effort getting low. He is going to be devoured up here. Do they have the damage? In comes Blank. The ground pound and the flash away. Now Blank trying to get frisky in the front, trying to lay down some damage. Bang, not enough to finish him off.
Man, that was tense, Valdez. That was close on both sides. Bang hit level 6 from that. They couldn't clear the minion wave in time. If Soul had pinged level 6, there would have been answering kills, or at least a first blood for the side of KONGDOO. So a lot happens. We have to also know this has implications in top lane, as now, if Raze goes top lane, there's no ultimate from Tal to clear the minions under turret. There's always a flow-on effect when a global is used, and Tal has used the Cannon Barrage.
Faker comes up here, sees that the blue is not taken, was thinking, okay, Zac's not up here, and trying to poke his head up towards the top side, but sees Zac, and he backs off. Not going to go for any Anivia ganks.
The Anivia no boots gank. Famous play.
with a catalyst and a tier only.
It's one of those things where if you do that, it actually has a surprising success rate because the first thing the enemy top laner thinks is, no way he's going to gank. The
You see
next
it in
level,
solo
next
queue.
level. Yep.
Yeah, where it's like, okay, I mean, this top laner is not thinking about me ganking as Anivia ever, so
I remember
guess I'll do it.
I was ganked by a level 3 Karthus once, and I was very mad. I was in the bot lane, and level 3 Karthus with no boots killed me.
Those are always the best.
And I was like, but that's not what this champion's for.
It's when the enemy mid laner doesn't respect your push and just lets you push into them. You're like, okay, I guess there's no warding. I'm going to gank as Karthus / Anivia / you know, whatever very passive champion you got in the mid lane.
Faker needs to go back to base, but has hit the part of the matchup where you have a lot of options against Ryze. Ryze is very medium range, and you're able to use the wall and reliably get the expanded Glacial Storm into the Frostbite trades that make you win. The RE that has always been there for the Anivia is very potent against the Ryze, so lane control will start to go the way of Anivia, who has a faster push, especially after the pushing nerfs on patch 8.5 slow down the push from the Ryze.
Picks up a lasting one, gonna have some AP in his kit now, as the bottom lane hasn't been all too frisky. There's not too much action outside of that one fight we saw earlier where the junglers came in, but outside of that, it looks like Bang and Effort are actually losing to the combination of Soul and Secret. Already Secret's, or rather Soul's Jhin is working out quite well, and they're looking for another gank in the bottom lane.
Summon advantage is pretty big. Raze hasn't been spotted because he did not walk through the river from the top side, but you could argue Faker hasn't been spotted either.
He's finally spotted, but the Chains of Corruption come in. Now they're gonna TP down to try to help out Soul, who's taking so much damage, but it's not enough. Turning it around onto Bang, but now Edge in a lot of trouble. The kidnap, though, onto Bang, but not enough damage coming out onto him. The wall trying to keep in Edge, but he actually makes it over. Faker flashing the wall. He's trying to be the carry, but it's not enough. The last auto cannot take out Edge, and he will survive after all of that.
Another even fight, 4v4, but nobody dies. Tal has the cannon barrage to throw it in. Doesn't get anything, and Raze going back in.
Oh, hello. Is that enough damage, though? He needs to get the auto with the red. He flashes in and he gets it. The first blood. He is going to trade his life after all of that. KONGDOO Monster certainly cannot follow up, but they do get the kill. And Gangplank also making his way down to the top lane. We could have a Fiora pushing top.
A bit of a mistake coming through Fiora. Didn't teleport onto the Bloblets, teleported defensively, and then canceled it. Doesn't get a teleport advantage through all of this. They will give up the Ocean. You'd argue it's not worth it to get a kill for an Ocean this early, and the Ocean is a big buff to Gangplank and Anivia. Both of them very mana hungry in the laning phase. So while Roach can push up, and Proxy for a little bit, I would take the SKT side of this trade, even though the feel-good moment for KONGDOO fans is the first blood. So we take a deep breath, we think about what happened, because this was a very multi-layered fight. Effort held onto his Pulverize, hoping to get the back end of all of this. Soul, again, 100 HP, walking out of a cannon barrage. On the top side, a lot happening for the SKT side, but not enough damage to take down Edge, who gets the Realm Warp off, being able to count the CC. One more auto, all that is required, but not enough damage. They walk out. This could have been the end of anything, or everything. There was still a 1-for-1 after it, but the Ocean Drake goes the way of SKT.
KONGDOO Monsters, say what you will, but they're certainly creating a very entertaining series so far up against SKT, whereas a more solid team would back off and say, okay, you can go back to the drawing board, you know, just not fight. We don't have to dive in again as Zach 1v5. But KONGDOO Monsters say no, let's do it. And certainly, they do give over the Ocean Drake. SKT feeling pretty decent after that trade. But if Fiora having a little bit of extra time in the top lane, will continue to get ahead in the CS.
And it's all very frustrating for SKT fans, because if they had gone on to win this 2-0, they would have thought, okay, the gauntlet run is on, we're ready to go. They could finally feel good about themselves in a season where it's been very lean times for SKT. Now, if they win, they're just limping over into the playoffs over KONGDOO Monster, and everyone will say, you could hardly beat KONGDOO Monster, how are you going to run the gauntlet? And maybe that'll empower them to keep on prepping, but they are definitely being drawn to the last against KONGDOO Monster, and that is not a good sign, because KSV into KT, into Afrika, into Kingzone is an insane schedule for any team in the world.
And And as you're talking, Roach does it again. This time there's no fight to interrupt him, and he's going to get the Rift Herald very early at 13 minutes into this game. Has a little bit of help from Raze at the end, but he uses that pushing advantage in the top side against GP to just head on over. There was no vision. And so they hand that one over to Raze. We'll see what lane they want to push. I would suspect either the top or the bottom side.
Very interesting. Look at the build coming through from Bang. Now, he hasn't necessarily fully pigeonholed himself into rushing the Wit's End, but it looks like a Wit's End rush when you look at the damage coming through from the enemy jungler and the Rise. It makes sense. Could just be the Negatron to respect all the roams bot lane. But it's not going to be the Rage Blade complete at the same time, at least, with all the gold invested into the Negatron. Maybe he wants to fight earlier, have the extra on-hit damage. Things changing around the Rift. Boots 2 has always been a rush on Soul. Won't be the Swifties that were the core tenant of any build on Jhin. It's going to be the Merc Treads this time.
Uh-oh. Never mind. It is effort with all of his summoners, but
it's Raze.
They see it, yeah.
The Rift Herald, they know Varus is in base. They continue to push. We haven't looked at the turret HP. I'd imagine it's relatively healthy, and it is. How much damage can they do? Effort's leaving, so they've given this one up.
Yeah, relatively is the correct term. Healthy, but not healthy enough. As they split the gold over to Soul and Secret in a very early turret here. First blood turret given over to KONGDOO Monster before 15 minutes. Going to take a big lead in the gold off the back of that, about 1.3 thousand.
And again, 15 minutes into game 3 against SKT, KONGDOO Monster have a gold lead. Things I did not expect to be saying on the final day of the season, regardless of how many matches I'd seen. Given the difference in levels historically between these two orgs, still feel like SKT are very much in a great position to take over this game, but KONGDOO Monster are winning the early game. The Essence Reaver now finished onto the Jhin. I'm excited to see if the permaban status of the Jhin against Soul is going to be worth the respect that it's been shown so far. That's the big pick that KONGDOO got in game number 3 that wasn't available to them earlier.
Effort, the cow bait here, trying to come into the control ward, but KONGDOO Monster not biting the bait. There's no objective over here. It's really about Soul, but he's going to slow them down.
Best effort could have hoped for there was a trade of flashes, which you would love against the Jhin, but the trap being there, and there was no way for him to do that. KONGDOO Monster clearing in mid lane. Extra AD ratio on the Q makes it him a bit more competitive, the Jhin, to push through a mid lane. Side lane, everyone's piling in to kill the Rise.
Might be able to do it if they land the Sejuani ultimate. We're not going to see that as 3v1 on Total is going to be pushed back. Looks like the bottom side fight also did not happen. And Blank did hold on to his ultimate. It was a very long dive back there. And KONGDOO Monster used that pressure to take another turret.
And it's a big thumbs up moment for KONGDOO because they get the cannon barrage defensively to stop a dive. And they get the turret. That was the first objective, to trade up in terms of turrets. So they're able to blow a very important cooldown, and they get the turret they were set up for anyway. And somehow, Roach's Fiora is the big win condition today, and they're thinking about diving still.
Things you never thought you would say. Certainly Roach has been down on the bottom of the tier list of top laners, but he wants to prove everybody wrong. Literally everybody that's made a tier list about top laners does not have him high up, and
he's
looking good in this series.
LCK Spring 3 years in a row, and he would have been my 10th place top laner, maybe even 11th if there was some good top lane subs. He has struggled, Valdez, so for him to show on the carry, something he never has played reliably in the past. We're seeing a new Roach. Is it 2 years too late? Not to the KONGDOO fans, if they're able to beat SKT today.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe off of the back of this win, he gets confidence and begins to carry. It's kind of funny to say, but certainly the bigger storyline would be SKT falling to KONGDOO Monster. The game isn't over, but certainly SKT is a bit behind that. Ocean Drake was good early on, but KONGDOO Monster, they end the laning phase, and even if SKT have control of this next Drake, it's another Ocean. The RNG not going in their favor. The triple Infernal going to KONGDOO, the double Ocean to SKT.
Double Ocean decent, but at 18 minutes getting the second one, you don't feel fantastic, as you mentioned. Raze is walking out. This is risky.
Yeah, he's just walking straight into them. He's going to use that to get Baker to the back line, and he's forced to get out of here. Doesn't really do much after all that, as he's forced to flash away anyway.
Cancel the teleport as well, and Tar will go top lane, trying to interrupt him. Will not be able to do so. They don't get turret damage. We take another deep breath. Remember that every time they fully engage, the wall can completely change the battlefield and make a seemingly one team fight for KONGDOO Monster a losing one. So we have to be very quick to pivot, Valdez, when it comes to who is most likely to pick up the win in the 5v5s. Roach a second time cancels his teleport. He's working on Trinity Force. He's still loaded with gold.
Oh boy. This is, it's neck and neck between KONGDOO Monster and SKT in game number 3. Our 89th match of the LCK 2018 Spring. It's as close as ever. They're looking for another dive onto Tal here. The defensive cannon barrage once again, but they're fighting through, and here's Raze as well saying, hello, I'm gonna pick up the kill. They're gonna give that one over to Roach, but can they get into the back line here? They're gonna get on top of Soul. No Devour just yet. Finally comes on in. Trying to get him to safety. Here comes Faker. He's got his ghost on. He wants to get the wall, but this time Ray's gonna jump into the back line. Varus is gonna stand tall against them. Ray's now TPing on in. The wall, they're trying to kill Zach here in the end. Nope, TP to get them. The Devour to get KONGDOO Monster out of dodge. At the end of all of that craziness, a 1-for-1. Wow, okay.
And you have to look at the cost in terms of summoners when it's a very extended dive like that. Teleport and Ghost, not going to be big. No flashes blown. So in the general, it's just a 1-for-1. Fiora will back away. See how much gold she was holding on to. Not enough for a Trinity Force. So isn't able to take over the side lane in the way like she'd want to. Soul also putting together gold. It was a wit's end rush from Bang. He is looking for as much power early as possible. Rageblade might be a 3rd or 4th item, as it will be in the future as we move on to 8.6 and it becomes a percentage scaling item rather than a flat AP and AD item, attack speed as well. Rageblade is going to take a different route. It's going to be kind of the death cap multiplier to an on-hit build rather than the core of a on-hit build. So Bang working with what he's got. He's trying to get the power. He knows they cannot afford to give up the mid game like they did in game number 2.
This game is getting crazy. KONGDOO Monster still ahead at about the 20-minute mark as we cross that here. Next streak is going to be infernal, so certainly one that the two teams will fight over. Are they going to have an answer to Roach in the top side? It still sounds funny to me. It's strange to say with my mouth, but he's 1-0 on the Fiora, and he's pushing him in. We'll see what he can do. He has transferred down into the bottom side, and they've sent the Rise up to the top side, so they're executing a 1-3-1 for now.
Teleport advantage on the Rise, sorry, on the Fiora in just a couple of seconds. So that's why the Fiora is in bot lane. Rise has to be so careful because Sejuani, even Anivia coming out of the darkness and putting down a wall can basically kill him. So for now at least, going to be very defensive. Defensive build also did not go for Rod of Ages, which we see on most of our Rise players. Happy to opt into the Abyssal Mask this game. 2 items onto the Jhin. New build we see in Korea exclusively. No more Yomus. Out with the lethality. In with Essence Reaver, Amplifier Cannon, Infinity Edge as the core build.
SKT looking to make a push happen in the mid lane as they notice KONGDOO Monster is a little bit split up, but they don't really have enough pushing power, and Soul's doing a good job of pushing back on the Jhin.
The Q bus, the AD ratio as the game goes on from level 9 onwards, means that Jhin does a decent job pushing when that used to be the biggest weakness of a Jhin was if you put him in the mid lane, he got pushed in by basically everyone short of Ezreal. So giving him a bit more wave clear is helpful. Still going to be mostly about the 4th shot when you go a build like this rather than the ultimate. That will do plenty of damage as well. KONGDOO Monster being respectful. They know where they're strong around Roach. They also know that one mistake could definitely snowball this game away. I just love the fact that with nothing to play for, Jhin Air upset the Rocks Tigers, likely putting them out of the playoffs. And then today, in the same scenario for KONGDOO Monster, they're fighting to the absolute last, the final game of the season they'll play, desperately looking for their 3rd match win after so many defeats.
You just know that KONGDOO Monster, there's not much on the line, as you say, but to take out SKT and to be the spoilers would be fantastic to them. They would love it. Be just something to give their team some more popularity in a way. Say, hey, KONGDOO Monster was the team that denied SKT playoffs with their crazy 2-1 victory in the last series, but we'll see. They're going to go on to Soul here. Nice Devour.
Watch for the wall. Watch the wall.
No wall comes out here. Going to bang some heads together is Raze. As Faker gonna engage once again onto Raze. They're gonna blow everything onto this Zac who tries to get away. Does kidnap Blank in, but there's no further damage. Ed's coming from the left side, trying to go 1v4.
He's done for.
There's the wall once
Secret.
again. The stun coming on in. Secret, but effort coming from behind, denying him the devour. A great play from our rookie support. The SKT fans gonna cheer as they win that fight in big numbers.
SKT really want Baron from this play. They should start it, you would imagine, but they're trying to deal with the Fiora in the side lane. They won't be able to get the Baron. That's so important for the side of KONGDOO Monster. Raze in the front line, had Flash and Ultimate available and thought he'd be fine. There was no time to use the Let's Bounce because he was chain CC'd and killed. Before any of that could happen, watch the replay through all of this. They were baiting to get the engage onto Soul when he went for the auto attack on the very low health turret. Able to disengage. This could have been the end of everything, but they looked for the pick. The wall finally used. Faker wasn't in position to use it onto the Tahm Kench. Great flash and pulverize as well. They're not able to pick up the Baron from this play. It's a feel-good one. It gets them more map control that they did not have before because of the power of the Fiora in the side lane. They also know a lot of summoners are down, but the ultimate prize in the Baron eludes them for now.
Certainly you can see some of the weaknesses out of KONGDOO in a moment like this. Raze not respecting the wall range out of the Anivia. Probably doesn't play against it all too often compared to some other picks. And then also Ed's coming in and being forced to flash away just to try to survive, but then eventually going down. Means that KONGDOO Monster, they're ahead, but they have had trouble ending games in the past. So now with a winning fight over to SKT, they close a bit of that gold gap and things are looking a lot more even.
I really like the Ghost from Faker. He's used it a couple of times, hasn't got value. I'm saying, why Ghost on the Anivia? It allows him to side lane on the lane closest to the objective that SKT is going to fight for, and then goes to the objective to be in position. So Teleport Anivia doesn't work because she needs setup time, but Ghost Anivia is a pseudo-teleport in that way, in that you just have to have the right lane assignment of putting her next to Baron when you're playing around Baron, the Infernal Drake when you're playing around the Infernal Drake, and then she can Ghost to close the distance. So that's the theory there for the Faker.
Yeah, teleporting in as an Anivia is generally not a fun moment. So you got to be away from the enemy team. As you mentioned, that setup time is very important. SKT, they were setting up towards that Infernal Drake, but they were very scared about Roach coming from the right side. And they're going to try to engage here. The ultimate will go wide onto Secret now.
Problem for Secret is he doesn't have a QSS. If he has QSS, he can face check and put down vision. It's actually building towards a couple of different items here between the Aegis and the Kindle Gem, just trying to buy power and early stats. QSS is sometimes a luxury, sometimes a necessity. For me in this game, it is going to be a necessity. But if he doesn't have to be there, and if he doesn't have to put down vision, maybe he can get away with it. They're face checking, and SKT lying in wait.
KONGDOO Monster playing very careful here. They
Does
know
have
they
the cleanse. Should mention he has the cleanse. So cleanse can still be very useful in this game, but there's so much chain CC that you worry cleanse might not even be enough.
Yeah. Fiora, Roach still doing a good job. KONGDOO Monster, they're playing well around the pressure of Fiora, and they know that the Sejuani has her ultimate down. They start off the Infernal Drake here.
Remember, Cannon Barrage available. Tal pushing into Rise in the top lane. They're starting up the Infernal, so they've actually leashed it at 50% health.
There's a Cannon Barrage taking that damage, and the TP committed to from Tal. They want this Infernal. KONGDOO Monster trying to disengage, but they're going to re-engage here. TP coming in from Edge now. Looks like Effort going to have to give his life up for that Infernal Drake. A pretty good trade after all for SKT.
What does it mean though? There's no Tracker's Knife, so you know you have a time to get vision control around the map when the enemy's support is down. Roach can rush the bot lane as well, but Infernal for his support still feels good for SKT. The Elder is looking more and more ominous as we will have a fourth spawn. Another Infernal will be spawning this game.
We've seen this before, the Rise Fiora duo push.
The piggyback that KONGDOO tried in their last series. It didn't work. We should mention against BBQ, so they will disengage.
Yeah, it's hard to push into a gangplank. You can't really hold him down as the Rise. You got to dive the turret. He has really nice wave clear, so certainly one of the harder champions to do that strategy against. KONGDOO Monster, we mentioned a bunch of good things for SKT, but still some good things for KONGDOO. They still have the 2-0 Fiora, who just picked up the components to a Bloodthirster third. And Rochi was the MVP of Game 2. I could certainly see him popping off once again if it gets late enough in Game 3.
Very hard to make it about lane priority like it was in game number 2, where it was the win lane, win game. And they just had so much power so early that SKT were in a bad situation whether they ganked or whether they tried to play as 5. So in this particular game, the backup team fighting, we do see Roach team fight more than most Fioras. You are against an insane amount of CC. He's got Ninja Tabi into Sejuani, Anivia, Alistar, and Varus. And what does that tell you? It tells you he wants to be as far away from those 4 people as possible and play in the Gangplank lane. So unless he's able to come in and clean up with a lot of damage done by Soul and Edge, maybe there's a cleanup. Speaking of cleanups.
Oh boy, Soul gets himself into trouble again. There's the cleanse flash, but he doesn't need to be there. He gets caught the second time. The first time it was for the turret, understandable, but this time just hanging around the river trying to get vision, and they will pay dearly for that.
Biggest upside for the side of KONGDOO Monster is Bang doesn't have Rage Blade. We mentioned he went for a 1-item power spike in the Wit's End, a bit cheaper than the Rage Blade. Didn't want to be sitting on a pickaxe and a blasting one for an extended time, but it does mean the damage output from Bang is lower than basically every other Varus that we've seen. I was not going to expect that Roach is here, who is overstaying, but goes for the prediction play and gets it anyway.
Yeah. Good read there. There were some question mark pings. You know, maybe he had backed off into the jungle, but just being safe is always the good play, especially in a game like this, while not going to interrupt the Elastic Slingshot this time around.
Flash and Cleanse down on Secret, but Summoner's up on everyone else. And now they're going for the piggyback again. It's the way they like to go.
Yeah, Edge doesn't have his TP,
they're going
but
for
he
dive.
has it. Here we go. The grand challenge is going to be Brock up against the wall. Going to deny it for now, but here comes Ed from behind, and they get the kill. Trying to dive the mid lane turret is SKT, but it doesn't work out for them. Look at this. Effort taking a lot of damage. Has to ultimate away. Great play for KONGDOO Monster after all.
This is something that SKT should have expected. They tried the piggyback again and again in recent series, but this time they're going to pick up an inner turret. You and I know all about the piggyback. It's both TV and OGN,
yeah.
an old favorite of ours. But the piggyback strategy of sending 2 teleport users to the same lane, even though Edge's teleport was on cooldown, gets them the inner turret. Fiora probably going to have most of a bloodthirst, and oh boy, we're going all in.
You mentioned the ghost on Faker. KONGDOO Monster saw it too. There's no TP. Faker trying to make his way on over. Will they commit to this is the real question. Blank, he's got an opportunity to steal. Change of Corruption's coming in, and the force flash out of Bang. Bang, rather, he is able to get out of there. And KONGDOO Monster, now they just want to get out. They cannot fight this, but getting low is raised. The Ignite ticking.
Is it going to
Will
get him?
Kill him. So close, but it's not going to do it, it looks like.
They're out of the fight. Does SKT turn onto the Baron from this? Their Baron damage is decent because they have Blade the Ruin King on the Varus, but otherwise they don't really have a secondary damage dealer as Gangplank can't be grouped. So they don't trust in their Baron speed. That does mean that Ray's able to heal up. But he's face checking again.
Yep, someone has to face check. It's going to be Raze this time. Up against the wall is going to be taken out. Certainly a huge pick for the side of SKT as they get the jungler away.
This should mean Baron, but SKT are continuing to bait. They join the ultimate. Soul gets a huge chunk.
That's the huge barrel onto it, and it means that Secret is also going to pay for it with his life. SKT should start the Baron now. We got Roach down the mid lane, trying to make him pay for it. Might be able to get this mid lane inner.
Try and get a turret, but that's just 2 inner turrets in exchange for Baron. KONGDOO Monster make big hits around the Baron, but SKT outthink them throughout the majority of it. KONGDOO Monster's Baron plays have not been something we praised in this series. I thought they might just go for the 50-50, but they tried to make the controlled turn. The turn doesn't work, and now SKT have Baron. What does it mean for the game? Because it doesn't mean much for the gold lead, Valdez. It's only 200 lead to KONGDOO Monster.
It means that KONGDOO Monster are going to try what worked for them. They're going to go for another piggyback play in the bottom side, but this time it looks like SKT has read it well.
And
Effort coming down.
He has ult up as well.
And he does, and here's Blank as well.
Nice riposte.
Okay. Can use the Realm Warp to get away. They're just going to try to walk it.
Ghost from Anivia.
Here comes Faker trying to get that wall down. They're looking for Edge here. He doesn't have
flash.
his flash. Oh, he misses it. And now trying to engage as it looks like finally they will get Roach. And now Secret forced to cleanse away from this one. Should not be able to get out of there. And SKT, they're beginning to roll with the punches and they're getting ahead from it.
One by one, the members of KONGDOO Monster fall. The moment they saw Alistar, they could have just disengaged. They went for the pick, which was never going to happen. They give up the Infernal. Feels like the neutrals are where the big lead is for SKT. They have 4 Drakes, including double Infernal. They still have the Baron for 2 minutes. KONGDOO Monster need to force SKT into team fights, otherwise this game should end.
They're getting a huge Baron power play, and we're still 2 minutes left on the Baron. They have so much time to make even more of it. Let's see where they decide to go. The mid lane inner turret is going to go down with Tal pushing in the bottom lane. But how far will they go? Are they willing to dive into the mid side? Still Secret is down, as well as Roach. The push continues.
Wall still massive on the rise. It has to be so respectful. There's flashes up. Tom Kench back, so they can push up a little bit more aggressively than before.
And a root effort here. Another wall that Secret can always devour over onto Soul.
Raze just trying to be an annoyance on the side. Won't actually be considering an engage. Fiora clears out the minion wave and is looking to groups level 18 for both GP and Fiora. But like we mentioned, Roach is not set up for a team fight.
Soul being the hero here, eventually able to take out the bannered up minion. And trying to be the sniper too. His Ws are going to begin to hurt as we get later on in this game. But SKT, they really want to get this. There's the wall again, but another Devour on point. Chains of Corruptions locks them down. The inhibitor will also go down. The flank getting low. It's not enough as Secret is going to pay for it. Now Raze is going to be stunned up, and another kill going to go over to SKT. Will they continue pushing? Still 51 seconds remain.
It's the reality of the comp. They can't 5v5, but they're trying.
Roach's going to disappear once again, and they're going to catch Edge as well. It looks like the dream for KONGDOO is not going to come true as an ace comes through onto the side of SKT, and the TP will come in. It was so close. The pressure was there, but SKT, they meet it, and they will get into the playoffs in 4th place with the win over KONGDOO Monster 2-1.
High drama in the second last match of LCK Spring 2018. SKT creep over the line, but it's not the triumphant inauguration of their playoffs. It was only just Valdez, and they still have a motley crew of the best teams in the world to beat. If this is not to be their victory, this is the minimum you would expect from SKT. Qualifying for playoffs, the fans will say they did it last year, but this has been their worst return in LCK history. They dropped 23 games in LCK Spring 2018, 23 best of ones, more than an entire NALCS season of games. Meanwhile, their worst return previously was 15 games. Job is done on the day, but they know the victory on the season is far from done. They can smile, they can reset. They have 6 days to get back in form. They will face KSV in a best of 3 to decide who goes on to face KT Rolster. Chances of a telecom war best of 5 increase, but SKT just about did it. KONGDOO Monster win lane, win game one in game 2, but when it came to game number 3, they had to group with the Fiora. Their Baron play wasn't clean, and SKT deserving victors on the day.
Definitely some fun storylines. SKT barely defeat KONGDOO Monster to make it into playoffs. KSV, they make it because Jin Air upset Rocks Tigers, and either team that makes it up to face KT in our first best of 5 is going to have a very hard matchup, but also some struggles on their way to get there. And we're going to take a last look at the replay. Nicely done by SKT in the end. You notice Como is very happy. Everybody in the SKT booth very, very relieved after this one.
They're able to close out the game. Roach can't do anything. He's where all the gold is, Valdez. Ninja Tabi, Fiora. It's a lockdown team. Tries to poke, tries to distract. Not able to do that. SKT rush through the GUI center. They don't worry about the Fiora on the side. Finally able to get the important picks. Fiora, well, she went into the fight and died instantly. Nice engage from Effort. They take out the Rise. They take out the game. This means that Rocks Tigers are eliminated. So sorry to Rocks fans who would have been watching on, very interested in this particular match. They will not be able to make it after a great season. They fall at 6th. KSV versus SKT. Samsung Galaxy versus SK Telecom T1. It's not Beijing anymore. It's going to be the first match of our playoffs, and only one of those teams can go forward.
It's going to be a very hype best of 3 to start off our playoffs eventually, but now everything is set. We know who's playing in every match, at least who's in each place, waiting for the next team to come up. We will have our 90th game coming up next, guys. It will be a precursor to the playoffs, the Afrika versus KT match to end the night, but SKT, they do it. It was very interesting best of 3. KONGDOO Monster nearly upsetting them, but SKT pull through.
And my question to SKT fans who will be listening now, relieved that they've made playoffs, is what is good enough for LCK Spring 2018? They were right down the bottom. They went on a big losing streak, a historic one. How far do they have to get to live up to your fandom, to live up to your expectation? Making the playoffs was a very outside chance, and they've done it. They've clinched it right on the final day of the season. Do you need to beat KSV to be happy? Do you have to be the champions to be happy? Or is it somewhere in between? That is the question to keep in mind, because it's already a minor miracle that SKT have made it to the playoffs. They make it to the playoffs with a 50% win rate. 23 wins, 23 losses is enough for SKT to make playoffs. They do get a chance to throw it all out the window and just succeed and win every match one after the other. But it's a tough ask for a team that has only really gotten it together in their last 2 series and then went to 3 games against KONGDOO Monster.
Certainly as an SKT fan, you would expect them to defeat KSV. It was a clean 2-0 victory, but it's playoffs. Anything can happen with the pressure on the line of the wild card match, that one last best of 3 to see who faces off against KT. We'll see how SKT deals with the pressure, how KSV deal with, just barely making in thanks to Jin Air defeating Rocks, basically, not even of their own right, making it in. It's going to be an interesting one, that best of 3, certainly. I'll be watching on, but we're going to see the last MVP from SKT. We'll see who it's going to be. I'm not sure who it would be from this side. I feel like it was
Maybe
more
effort?
of a team effort, but Blank
Okay.
2-0-10 certainly had a pretty nice Sejuani game.
Wasn't necessarily as active as some fans would want, but he was clean. And clean on the Sejuani is a start. Blank is firming as the starter for playoffs. It seems like the Blossom experiment, it seems like the Wolf in the Jungle experiment are both put to one side, and they will be preferring the experience coming through from Blank. Second MVP on the season. He'll probably get the Zac at least one time in a best of 5. Let's see if he can put together the rest of his champion pool. We know he's in form. He's top 10 in solo queue. But people will believe it when they see it with Blank. He was good in game number 2, a deserving MVP.
Well, guys, that was a crazy series. I'm going to hand you over to Ji-sun to help out with the translation of our 2 MVPs in our interview.
진출도 확정을 지었습니다. 오늘 경기의 승리를 이끈 2 선수가 여러분을 기다리고 있습니다. 직접 만나보시죠.
Finally, they got the last ticket for the playoffs, picking up 2-1 victory against KONGDOO Monster. And today, let's hear from the MVP players of SK Telecom, Bang and Blank. Congratulations on the win.
선수 모두 오늘 경기 진짜 많이 놀랐던 장면들이 인상에 보는데 특히 경기 끝나고 뱅 선수가 그냥
After the game, I saw that you were holding your heart like it was such a hard match for you. I think after losing the game too, I got shivers. I was worried that I might lose out the 3rd one again. So yeah, I was worried, but I want to thank Blank and other players for performing so well.
어떻게 보면 결승전 때보다 더 어떤 느낌도 있었거든요. 어떤 장면에서는.
You seemed really nervous.
미안합니다. 근데 그렇게 봤는데.
Well, not like the finals, but yeah, I did feel nervous going into the games. It could be our last game of the series or the split. So yeah, those kind of thoughts in mind made me a little bit more shaky.
워낙 그 블랭크 선수도 뭐 긴장하는 표정이 얼굴에 그렇게 드러나는 편은 아니었는데 몇 번 화면 잡힐 때마다
Yeah, and Blank, you also seemed a little bit nervous on the screen. How did you feel? Yeah, just like he said, after losing at the game 2, I was really nervous about losing the 3rd game. And moving on to games, the game 1. Do you even remember the first game? Oh, when I got the 3rd kill? Well, no one was actually attacking the opponents, and they were helping me to pick up the kill, so I was really happy. It was my first experience.
그 장면이 과연 하이라이트 있는지 볼까요? 첫 번째 세트입니다.
Then let's check out some highlights from the game 1.
환상적인 플레이 위주로 저희가 한번 봤었는데 이 장면 어떻습니까?
이 장면은 알리스타가 이전에 좀 플래시가 빠져 있는 상황이었는데
Well, I knew Alyssa didn't have flash,
상대방이 좀 무리를 한 것 같아요.
but I think he went too deep into our position.
원딜 제거하는 난 장면이었고 이 장면인데요 또.
이 장면은
And
예전에
this
제가
one,
미드 왼쪽 푸시에서 상대가 이제 저를 물려고 했을 때 제가 그때 공을 쓰고 이때 플래시를 썼어야 되는데
아, 네.
well, I think I did a little mistake over here because I used flash before my ultimate. So yeah, I have to say that was my mistake.
와진 장면도 있었고 그 모인 그 상황에서 아주 기가 막히게 자르반이 또 이렇게 상대편을 묶어주는 그런 장면도 있었거든요.
And Blank, you did
어땠어요, 그 장면?
awesome work on your J4.
적팀이 좀 뭉쳐 있는 상황이어서 좀 감각이 좋았고 저도 일단 할 수 있어서.
Well, I see the angle coming to use my ultimate, so it was lucky for me.
오늘 경기를 지켜보면서 모두 각각의 그 절박함이 좀 느껴졌던 그런 경기였었는데 사실 지금 블랭크 선수가 잠깐 언급을 하셨던 2세트.
And you guys did mention the game too.
자발적으로 이제 선수들 간의 서로 간의 의견도 좀
So how did you guys
어떤 내용들이죠?
deal with the pressure going into the game 3?
일단 저희가 좀 충분히 이길 만한 경기였는데 좀 싸움을 좀 잘 못했던 것 같다.
Well, I think we could win the game 2, but we did make mistakes during the team fights.
그 얘기밖에 없었던 것
So we just said, let's get rid of our mistakes.
피드백을 받으러 가서 어떤 부분에 좀 아쉬운 점이 있었고.
So during the break time, the coach told me what kind of mistake we made and what kind of solution we can bring up in the games.
활약도를 좀 보여준 장면들이 있었잖아요. 어때요, 3세트?
일단
So Blank, how was the game 3?
경기라고 생각은 안 했지만 좀 떨리는 매치여서
It was a very important match for us, so
집중력이 만들어낸
I tried to focus as much as I could.
지금부터 이어서 한번 살펴드리겠습니다.
Then let's check out the clips.
자, 이 장면 만나볼까요? 어떤 장면인지.
Can you give us some comments about
기억에
this?
만큼 상당히 험난한 장면이었죠.
그냥 이기는 각이라고 생각해서
Well, I just knew that I was going to win the team fight if I landed my ultimate.
앞으로
그러니까 확실하게 결정질 장면이라고 생각하면서 안쪽으로 좀 들어오는 모습이었고.
Yeah, so I played a little bit more aggressive.
얻어냈었던 모습까지 한번 만들어줬었는데 블랭 선수도 이제 점점 기량이 올라가는 장면이
Blank,
나오고
I think you are back on your high notes.
어때요? 이제 조금은 예전 SKT가 가지고 있었던 그 힘들.
So is the old SK Telecom coming back?
일단 다 폼이 올라왔다고 생각하고 저희
I think all of our players are back in their high notes.
좀 기대해 주시고
So I want my fans to be expect a little bit more from our performance for the playoffs. And Bang, you have been consistent throughout the season.
그렇게 막 잘했던 것 같진 않은데 요즘은 좀 어느 정도 자신감을 좀
Well, nowadays, yeah, I think I became a little bit better than the beginning of the season. So yeah, I'm a little bit more confident than before.
워낙 뭐 솔랭에서 이거 좋은 내용들도 저희가 좀 잘 전해 듣고 있는 상황이라.
And I heard that you made it into the first rank in the solo queue, so
사실 이 선수들만큼
I'll be looking for your better performance in the playoffs.
분들이 뭐 물론 팬 여러분도 계시고 또 한 분이 계신 것 같습니다.
And we want to invite Koma, the head coach of SK Telecom, to this interview and share a talk.
네, 먼저 어떻게 보면 굉장히 이 자리가 되게 여러 가지 어려움이 많이 있었을 것 같은데.
It was a hard split for SK Telecom, right?
까지 올라오는 게 굉장히 힘들었지만 항상 아낌없는 격려와
It was really hard for us to make it into the playoffs, but I want to thank all the fans for supporting us throughout the bad and the goods, and also our SK Telecom team for being so supportive for our players, and also our coaching staff
선수단이 모두 열심히
to make our players look better in the games.
마지막 경기 같은 경우에는 선수들도 너무
And
중요한 게
even the last game,
떨린 게 보이더라고요.
I could see that they were a little bit nervous and shaking in the games, but I'm happy that they did overcome that kind of pressure and finally pick up the win.
다른 감독분들도 마찬가지겠습니다만 김준 감독이 지금 굉장히 좀 심리적인 압박을 많이 받을 수밖에 없는 그런 이번 스플릿이었잖아요. 특히나 그
Yeah, I can see that it was a rough season for you as a head coach of the team.
뭐가 결정되지 못한 이 상황에서 이제 경기였는데 2세트 끝나고도 아주 뭐 여러 가지 생각이 들었을 것 같은데
What kind of
3세트
thoughts
끝나고 나서
came
역할하는
into your
우승이
mind after the
팬
game
여러분들이 보셨을 때
2?
그래도
And
이제 좀 돌아오고 있구나 분위기가 이런 생각이
after
들었을
losing the
것
game
같은데
3, how did you feel? After winning the game 3, sorry.
솔직히 그런 생각은 잘 못했고 앞으로 이제 끝날 때까지 좀 끝난 게 아니어서 어떻게 하면 더 올라갈
Well, I
수
just thought that the end hasn't come yet, so
좀 원하는 거는 더 높은
I wanted to
곳으로
stay
가서
focused, and also
높은 곳까지 올라가서
I know that our fans are not satisfied with this result, so I want to make it into the playoffs and into the semifinals and into the finals.
분명히 팬 여러분들께서도 만족하고 계실 것 같습니다. 분명히 만족스러우시죠? 오늘 경기
So I'm sure that the fans are already so satisfied with SK Telecom's results.
따뜻한 것도 없고 팬들의 시선만큼 날카로운 것도 없는 것 같습니다. 그것 때문에 사실상
And I can say what helps the most for the players and the team is the support from the fans.
앞으로 좀 잘 풀어내시라고 사소한 선물 한번
So we prepared a present for you, Koma.
수첩을 많이 쓰는데 앞으로 승리에 대한
So
기분 좋은
we would like
소식만
to give you a new
담으시라고
notepad,
저희가
hoping that you
수첩을
can
색깔별로
put up
준비를
only
해봤습니다.
victorious notes on your notepad from now on.
좀 더 따뜻한 시선으로 많은 분들께서 박수 쳐주셨는데 이제 어떻게 보면 진짜 시작입니다. 어떻게 보면 지금까지 보였던
And
이
it's the
투수는
start
끝에
of the playoffs.
새로운 전기를 맞이하게 됐거든요. 팬 여러분들께 한 말씀
Would you like to say any last message for your fans?
일단 지금 이제 플레이오프로 올라가게 됐는데 오늘 저희가 받은 압박감 상대팀
We finally made it to the playoffs, so I want to make our opponents feel the same pressure that we felt for today.
높은 곳에 올라가는 SK T1 정말 보여드리고 싶습니다. 항상
And I want to show our fans back in the higher place in the LCK. Thank you for all the support.
오늘 MVP 두 명의 선수 역시 이제 앞으로의 그
And bang and blank.
사실 행보가 좀 기다리고 있잖아요. 대승표가 다 짜여져 있는 상황이라서 한 말씀 좀
You
부탁드립니다.
guys have a long journey to go. Any last message?
저희가 또 이제 어느 정도 시간이 또 주어졌기 때문에
Well, we got our time to go back to the drawing board and prepare for the matches, so we're gonna work really hard and trying to be ready for the playoffs.
테니까 좀 응원 많이 해주셨으면
So I want to ask for continuous support from our fans.
고생해준 이제 팀원들이랑 사무
And I also want to thank our teammates, our SK Telecom team, our coaching staff for
지금까지
being so supportive and always going through the season as a whole team.
사실상 SKT가 지금 여기 온 거를 기다리고 있는 나머지 팀들도 가장 경계하고 긴장하고 있을 것 같아요. 그만큼 지금부터 얼마만큼 좋은 장면을 보여줄 수 있을지
So we'll be expecting great performance from you guys, SK Telecom. And Blank, you want to add on to that?
사이로 올라가게 되었는데 좀
Well, so we are on the fourth place.
성장하는 그런 SKT가 되고
So we want to show the process of improvement throughout the playoffs.
자, 오늘 사실 굉장히 조심스럽습니다. 오늘 가장 멋진 승리를 만들어낸
So it was a really calm interview from SK Telecom. We can feel the burden and pressure that SK Telecom has been going through. So I want to congratulate once again SK Telecom on picking up their victory. So this will conclude the first match of the series, and I'll pass it back to our casters. Thank you.
Certainly looking calm after winning this one. Was close. Wasn't expecting SKT to lose a single game or for it to be even close at all. But KONGDOO Monster showed up to play, surprised SKT a little bit, and we had an interesting best-of-3 to end the decider matches of who makes it into playoffs after all.
I've learned that expectations are a dirty word when it comes to LCK Spring 2018.
Oh, yeah.
You just have to hang back and let the season wash over you. As SKT, after everything, have finished fourth. That is actually a very respectable position on the ladder, given everything that's happened, given the struggle they went through earlier in the season. With SKT, there is always that expectation of more. Is it going to be the grand final again? So hard to know. There's so much League of Legends to be played, and every opposition they face is going to be formidable. But SKT on this day could only do what was left open to them, beat the team in front of them. It was a struggle against KONGDOO, but now they get 5 days to really use the world-class preparation they've always had, try to fully understand the patch and fully understand their next opponent. They will be playing KSV in a world final rematch. It's only a best of 3. There's only so many adaptations that can be done. And does SKT have their final 5 decided? Because there's no guarantee that these 5 players will start in the playoffs.
Certainly seems like they will, especially after no change-up in Game 3 against KONGDOO, but hey, you never know. So we'll have to wait and see. KONGDOO Monster, they were ahead in this game, but they kind of lost it. It's more of what we expected out of KONGDOO Monster, you know, just some of their downfalls and why they haven't had much success in LCK so far, and it was 3 short games. SKT finally won in the end in 35 minutes, and they do make it into the postseason. That's what it says up at the top. After SKT did look good against KSV, I would predict them to win, but it's not going to be an easy matchup against KSV.
So they move in front of KSV because they own the head-to-head. It's match score, both of them at 9 match. In fact, 3 teams at
So
9 match
close.
wins. Then after that, it is game score. Both KSV and SKT are at 50% win and loss. So SKT, having beaten KSV both times, lead in the game score and the head-to-head, and thus we'll have side selection Very interesting to see if it'll be the red side that seems favored recently, or the blue side when we do get to that big match 1 week from yesterday. So 6 days from today, on Saturday, we will have that best of 3. Gonna get the schedule going, and of course we're ignoring our next match and just looking at the playoffs. 31st, 5 p.m. over at OGN. SK Telecom versus KSV. We've come so far since Beijing, but only one of those teams can go forward. And then look at the 3 teams you have to face. KT have been up and down. Afrika have only been on the up. And Kingzone Dragon X are pretty bloody good. So it is quite the gauntlet that you'll have to run.
It's pretty intense because I feel like every step represents a real feel in the skill between every team, right? Afrika, I feel like, have approved they're better than KT. Kingzone have proved they're better than everyone else. And then the 2 teams at the bottom seem to be the only teams that really, you know, scuffle with these upper teams. So it's a very competitive playoff.
And the cute thing is that actually the winner of KSV versus SKT goes to Rift Rivals, and the loser does not. That's actually a little cute thing there. You actually qualify for an international event with a best of 3. So that's an extra little lining. But guys, given the time, it's actually 7:42, so we'll start a little bit late, probably just after 8 p.m., but largely on schedule, and a 6-second match.
Yeah, it's going to be KT versus Afrika after about 20-25 minutes, so we'll see you then.
네, 오늘의 첫 번째 경기 콩두몬스터와 SK텔레콤 T1의 경기는 SK텔레콤 T1의 승리로 끝이 났습니다. 스플릿 초반 정말 달라진 모습을 보여줬던 콩두몬스터, 아쉽게도 SK 잔류에는 실패를 하게 됐는데요. 콩두몬스터는 승강전을 앞두고 있습니다. 승강전에서 멋진 모습으로 썸머 스플릿에서 다시 한번 만날 수 있기를 기대해 보겠습니다. 저희는 20분 후 KT 롤스터와 아프리카 프렉스의 경기로 다시 돌아오겠습니다.